Hi, my name's Rachel, and I am presenting my project on living on Hualalai Volcano. So this is a picture that I took driving home one night. It just shows how steep it is living in the neighborhood that I live in, but you can also see the beauty of all of the gardens and foliage, and then the amazing views of the Pacific Ocean beyond. The physical geography of my neighborhood is very steep slope, very uneven terrain because it's all on a recent lava flow. Uh, the rock is mainly crumbling with very little soil on top. We have lava tubes, cinder cones, and lava flows as our main sort of points of physical geography. And then at lower elevations, it's very hot, dry. There's not very much soil at all. It's very difficult to start gardens down there, although with the amount of sunshine you get at the lower elevations, it's actually really good for more drought tolerant plants. As you get up into higher elevations, you get a lot more wet, tropical cloud forest climate, and the trees and the foliage actually add to the soil layer there. So the soil is a little more well developed at higher elevations. Lava tubes are a regular sight around my neighborhood, and quite a number of lava tubes exist on people's properties. This one in particular that you see in the photo is a friend of mine's property, and my husband built the pond in the lava tube there to make it a little more aesthetically pleasing when you're walking down into it. You're actually sort of looking out the opening of the lava tube, and the relief that you see up at the top, that sort of cliff of rock, that top section, that's the normal section for the level of the ground. So we're quite a bit under the level of the surface here in this lava tube. They provide a lot of beauty, as you can see, but also challenges to property owners. Lava tube facts. So lava tubes are the remnants of lava flows. They're sort of like a footprint that the lava has left behind. They contain sometimes archaeologically important things like human bones and different types of archaeologically important artifacts. So when a lava tube is found on a property, you actually have to pay for a survey to be done. And if there's any sort of historically important artifacts found, you actually have to leave the lava tube undisturbed, which means sometimes property owners have to build fences or avoid developing certain areas, which can be very sort of financially devastating for certain people. Lava tubes can also be very structurally unsound. If you're walking and you're walking on top of a lava tube, at any point you could potentially break through the surface and fall into a hole, which can be very dangerous, as well as if you're inside a lava tube, because a lot of people like to go hiking inside lava tubes here, you can actually have debris fall on your head. And that last lava tube I showed you in that picture is actually that gentleman has parties down there, and they have lots of stereo equipment and big speakers. So at any point, the vibrations from those could really shift rocks loose from the ceiling of that lava tube and actually fall and potentially hurt somebody. So you have to be very careful. And these are some pictures of the lava tubes that I have experienced on the Big Island. The one in the middle with my daughter and her friend is actually one located at Hualalai Volcano. This is one that is right off the main highway, and you can go ahead and park your car on the side of the road there and hike in, and it goes for a number of at least a few hundred feet below that you can go and explore. It's pretty neat. The one on your left would be the Kaumana Caves. That's on the east side of our island. And then the one on the right is the Thurston Lava Tube at Volcanoes National Park. Steep slope. So we have a really steep slope. The average slope on the main road, Kaimanani, is 16%. My property has an average grade of 11%, which can make things very difficult, even like putting away groceries or like finding a place to put your ping pong table to play ping pong is very difficult here. Everything is on a slope. Everything wants to roll downhill. And that makes landscaping and development pretty difficult too. So if somebody wants like a flat lawn, you actually have to build quite a big backfill and retaining wall to make your property flat. So quite a few people have like stair step style uh, front yards just to make it a little easier access and gardening. And then I've got a pretty cool little animation that I made here on Google Earth where I traced a line of the main road, Kaimanani, to find out what the average slope would be. And you can see down below there how very steep it is. We're gaining in, a little over 2 miles, we're gaining quite a lot of feet. So it's quite an interesting range for sure to live on. And I live close to the top of that area along the path. The topographical map here, you can see there's a lot of lines. Hualalai is there on the left, and you can see Kailua Kona just below the Hualalai volcano marking. That's the main city on this side of the island. And we're definitely right on the edge of a volcano. So rocks and soils that we have here in Hawaii mostly are on Hualalai. We have pohoihoi and a'a, and then there's blue rock. And blue rock is basically like basalt that is underneath the first layer of lava, and it's older and more weathered chemically and biologically. So it's sort of smoother. It's usually a little denser than the top rock, and it's very useful for construction. And then we also have limestone deposits along the coastlines due to the massive amounts of coral and fringing reef that we have. There's very little topsoil. Most of the time when you're gardening, you have to actually bring topsoil in for any sort of gardening. It's actually hard to even find topsoil here if you don't want to buy it in small bags at like Home Depot or Lowe's. There's a couple of people who put together topsoil, but it's an interesting challenge living here. Slightly more topsoil if you get higher up. So because we're at about 1,200 feet elevation, we do have a little bit more soil. But when we were building one of the ponds in our front yards, there was like only a couple inches of soil and then hard pohoihoi rock. So hard, in fact, that the bulldozer that was like breaking into it was smoking with the friction of trying to break up the rock. It was pretty intense. There's lots of chemical and biological weathering at the surface, from water and dissolved acids flowing in and over the rocks during our frequent rainy periods. Many plants are present, but most of them are invasive or non-native species. Invasive mean they just sort of take over and they just go nuts. Non-native meaning that they're not here originally, but people brought them in for the most part. Sometimes they're brought on other aspects, but a lot of our plants were brought in because of landscaping, actually, and so and farming for that matter. So most of the grasses that cover a large percentage of our island are actually invasive, non-native grasses. So it does contribute quite a bit to the biological weathering of the rocks. And we've got a few of the rock photos here. So you've got Pohoihoi on the left. You can see the really beautiful sort of ribboning that you get with Pohoihoi. You have the a'a, which makes for very rough hiking. Quite a bit of the hikes that you do here on Big Island and Hualalai Volcano are covered in a'a. So you really have to pick your steps carefully. And then you can see the blue rock down there at the bottom. It's much more smooth on the edges. You can see how much more weathered it is, and it's a much easier rock to be able to stack into rock walls and other types of construction. And then this is a map, a Google map or Earth map of my neighborhood, and I just put a little dot where I live so you can sort of get an aspect of where I'm located. You can see up above my home, there's the Hualalai Summit. And then to the left of the Hualalai Summit, there's the Pu'uwa'awa'a Cinder Cone, which also has a pretty cool hike to go up and around. It's really neat, and it's quite distinctive when you're driving north. And then directly below me is the airport, and you can see that really dark lava flow. That's the 1801 lava flow that basically flows right over where, or right under where the current international airport is. So in Hawaii, our lava flows are on Hualalai. Our lava flows are very distinguished. We have a very well-developed northwest rift zone, a moderately well-developed south-southeast rift zone, and a poorly developed north rift zone. Most of our eruptions, our most recent eruptions happened in 1800 and 1801, and they produced very fluid, very fast-moving lava flows. It was an alkalic basalt, and there was a lot of xenoliths from the mantle, and xenoliths are like unusual rocks that you get thrown up from the magma in the mantle. So there's quite a bit of that in the flows on Hualalai. Lava flow hazard zone map. This is something that insurance companies actually use to figure out what sort of payment you're going to make on your insurance and how you're going to be covered. Hualalai is a 4, and the higher you go, like 9, for example, would be the highest. That's the safest zone. That's the least likely to have lava flowing. So 4 is sort of in the middle, but really not highly likely. So it's our lava insurance, our volcano insurance isn't that high here. But some of the areas you can see that are actually developed, quite well developed in Hawaii, are 2s, and some of them are even 1s. So this can make it very difficult to get affordable insurance for your home. And there were whole communities that have been wiped out in the recent past in Hawaii. So this is a constant challenge for both insurance and for homeowners that you have to deal with, and just trying to be safe, of course, with your placement and your choice of location. And then this map is really cool. This is a map of the most recent lava flows of Hualalai. So you can see the Kaupulehu flow of 1800 that makes it to the sea, the Huehue flow of 1801 that makes it to the sea. That's the one that's basically underneath the international airport right now. And then there's a really big one that actually stretched all the way around Hualalai from Mauna Loa in 1859. So you can see that one in gray. It's a pretty neat map here. Now, information about Hualalai. Hualalai is actually the 3rd youngest and most active volcano on Hawaii Island. It's in the post-shield stage, which means it's sort of in the process of going dormant. The eruption rates have really decreased dramatically. It's only erupted 3 times in the last 1,000 years. But it is still an active volcano, so you still do need to be sort of aware of the challenges of living on an active volcano. 80% of the volcano is covered in lava flows that are less than 5,000 years old, and in a geological sort of time frame that is very recent history. It probably reached the explosive stage, meaning that it broke out from the ocean surface about 300,000 years ago. But most of the rocks that we've found today on like the areas that we can access of Hualalai are actually about 150,000 years old at the oldest. The volume's 12,400 kilometers cubed, and the area is 751 kilometers squared. Now, as far as geological activity at Hualalai, like I said, probably reached past the surface of the Pacific Ocean over 300,000 years ago, and the oldest rocks are aged at 128,000 years ago, excuse me. Last eruption was 1800 and 1801, and in April 2nd of 1868, there was the Great Kau earthquake that went along with that lava flow, and it was very strongly felt in the Kailua Kona area. But not very much damage happened. And then in 1929, there was actually quite a bit of earthquakes. There were 6,200 earthquakes recorded, and scientists think that it was probably caused because there was a a release of magma into the chamber below Hualalai, and actually they think it's below the Pu'uwa'awa'a cinder cone. In September 25th, 1929, there was a 6.1 magnitude earthquake, which is really big, and there was a ton of destruction to houses and roads. In October 5th, 1929, which is just a month later, basically, or a few weeks later, 6.5 magnitude earthquake, even bigger and a lot more destruction. And this was all centered around that Pu'uwa'awa'a vent. And so scientists think because of this recent activity, it's probably highly likely that Hualalai will erupt at some point again in the future. And then there's that map. I was talking to you again about those flows there. So you can see that the flows. And then the Pu'uwa'awa'a cinder cone is highlighted right below that Mauna Loa flow. And so you can see sort of the relationship to where it is and where the Ahinoa crater is. So challenges of living on a volcano. We're in a lava flow and hazard level 4, so that makes it a little more difficult and a little more expensive to get insurance. Not as bad as living over in Hilo. Some areas in Hilo have a real tough time with that, but or on the Hilo side of the island, I should say, Pahoa area. But here on the Kalaoa area of Hualalai Volcano, we're pretty safe. We have a lot of earthquakes. In fact, I just heard an earthquake this morning. We've had 195 earthquakes on the Big Island in July of 2017, and it's not even over yet, so we'll probably reach over 200. That's a lot of earthquakes. We're constantly having earthquakes. Most of the time, from geologists that I've talked to, the earthquakes really are like lava tubes that are collapsing, usually underneath the island, possibly underneath the water, and then also big chunks of lava flows that are just sort of breaking off underneath the water because of wave action and you know, physical and chemical weathering. Just huge sort of chunks of the side of the volcano fall off in the water, and that creates quite a bit of seismic activity. Vehicles here have to have their brakes replaced on average every 1.5 years. It does a lot of damage to your vehicle. Most people, of course, have automatic cars, and living on this steep of a slope makes it a lot easier to use an automatic, but probably if we were all driving sticks, we'd be doing better because you could downshift more often and sort of lay off your brakes a little bit. But this has been our experience, is about 1.5 years for brakes. So I'm due anytime now. Walks and bike rides are also limited due to the steep slope. My daughter bike rides on our little block that goes sort of perpendicular to the main street because it's so steep. I occasionally see people biking here. A lot of times during Ironman season, you'll have people trying to bike up the hill as like training. It's pretty intense. I do a lot of walking around here, but again, it's super steep, and you're definitely putting strain on your joints and on your respiratory system just getting up and down a block, let alone taking a nice brisk stroll. Hikes are also usually over rough terrain. We have lots of lava, like I was saying before, on the surface, and so quite often when you're hiking, you're actually tripping over very sharp, very steep lava. I've cut myself on lava. My daughter's cut herself on lava. My husband's cut himself on lava. My dad broke his ankle slipping on lava when we first got here, so it's a very common challenge to deal with. But there's also a lot of fun to be had, and some of the fun geological adventures that we just absolutely love living on this volcano is snorkeling. There's snorkeling everywhere. We have huge fringing reefs all over the place. They're really beautiful. There's tons of amazing animals, and even though the water is starting to get warmer and some of our coral is starting to bleach, we do still have quite a bit of intact reef, which is awesome. There's these awesome hikes you can take all over the place through lava flows. There's actually ancient trails you can take all over the island, which is really neat. There's tons of national and state parks littered all over the island, which is really neat to be able to go and visit and read some of the interpretive information that they have available for you. And then there's an amazing variety of beaches. We have white sand beaches, you know, your typical soft powder sugar sand. Then we get your salt and pepper of all sorts of different mixes up. So sometimes it literally looks like salt and pepper. Sometimes it looks like there's been a whole bunch of dirt mixed in too. We get black beaches where it's like basically all just broken down lava rock, basalt rock. And then we get green sand because actually a lot of the lava here has a ton of olivine crystals in it. And they have a tendency to just sort of break apart and fall out of that lava rock. So you'll be walking on the beach and there'll just be this awesome stripe of green sparkles in the sand, which is really neat. So this is a picture of my daughter and I snorkeling on one of our local reefs. You can see some of that intact coral in the background. It's really beautiful. And she found a shed skin of a lobster there. So all sorts of fun exploration to do. These are some of our hikes, and you can see I'm walking over some of that lava there that's loose and uneven, and at any point you can trip. I am wearing slippers, so you know, you take your own risks. And then that's my husband and my daughter. At the end of one of our hikes, we hiked out. We actually jumped in the water and did some snorkeling there. It was really cool. And then this is some of the fun that we do. We've got there's a cinder cone down by Kua Bay. Kua Bay is the beach that you see there on the right on the top image. And you can see Hualalai Volcano in the background. It's really beautiful. It's actually quite popular. The water is just crystal clear. And then up above it, there's a cinder cone where you can hike up, and it's an excellent place to fly kites. So we have done that a number of times, and we really enjoy it. And that's the place of refuge. Where my daughter is sunbathing there. It's a beautiful reef to go snorkeling on. So more fun. Again, my daughter's snorkeling. There's actually a white tip reef shark down there below in the cave that you see there. And then my in-laws are here visiting. They're from Canada. So they come and they love to explore the local tide pools and the coastlines. And it's just a really fun place to live. And then this is a map of our national parks that we have. So you can see the Pu'uhononau National Park I was talking about, where the two-step reef is. We've got the Koloko Honokauhau National Historical Park, which is a really cool place. And there's tons of sea turtles to check out there, which is really neat. They come and take naps up on the beaches. The Pu'ukohola Heiau National Historic Site, which is a really amazing, very historically significant area. And if you go there sometimes in the morning and look out, you can actually see sharks. This was an area where ancient Hawaiians used to feed sharks human sacrifices. So it's pretty crazy. And then we've got the Hawaii Volcanoes National Park down there at the bottom. All of these parks I've visited. I love them so much. There's a ton of other state parks and local parks in the area that I've visited, and I just really appreciate the amount of access we have to them on this island. And then quickly, these are my sources. Thanks so much for watching my presentation. Aloha.